Good morning again. Thank you. And our guest this morning, we're so glad so many of you are here, is Greg Tang, an author of some of the most creative and beautiful math books around things like Imagine, The Grapes of Math, The Best of Times, Math Fables, and more. He's a former corporate professional who decided he wanted to help children and parents understand math better after he helped his own children with their schoolwork. That story echoing once again here. It sparked a whole new career for him. He met one of our staff members, Andrea Roberts, at a conference last spring, and he made it a point to come share with you today. He's here from Boston, very generous with his time. Please welcome Greg Tang.
Thank you very much. I wanted her to start quickly before everybody could head for the doors. Now, raise your hand if you think you're bad in math. People expect me to say, oh, you're not really bad in math, but you know what? I'm sure you are. Now, if you think you're bad in math, you are. The question is why? Now, I can in 15 minutes get any kid, any parent, any teacher to look at numbers completely differently. The whole world is trying to figure out how do you fix the math problem. It's simple. You get kids to become what? Smart. Now, I have 3 kids going to good colleges. Do you think they're good in math? I'm a math teacher. I'm Asian. Now, turns out they're pretty good in math, but they're all going for hockey. Now, the reason I say that is this. If I had set out to make my own kids great in math when they were little, and then it turns out they don't like math, aren't I kind of in trouble? So I set out to make my kids smart. Now you got to ask yourself, what does it mean to be smart? What do smart people do that makes them smart? Everybody's gone to a party, you meet somebody, you talk to them for 5 minutes, you walk away thinking, boy, that person is smart. What did they talk about? Now, if you go to a party, you meet somebody, they go on and on for 5 minutes about themselves, their own job. Do you walk away thinking, boy, that person's smart? What do you call somebody like that? A guy. Now, it turns out smart people are able to talk about anything. They're very good at one thing in particular. They're really good at making connections. And I don't mean with other people. I mean taking a concept that they know and connecting it to the things that they don't know. When we talk about developing algebraic thinking skills, that's exactly what we mean. It's the ability to connect things. Now, do good teachers use analogies? Yes. Why? Because they're trying to explain something, and if a kid doesn't get it, they need to figure out how to connect that to something the kid gets. It's the ability to generalize, which is everything. Now, I would argue that most teachers, a lot of teachers in math, are doing exactly the opposite. The whole math establishment is doing the opposite. You know what they're doing? They're teaching us to think specifically. We say to a kid, what? You got to know how to multiply. But then how do we define multiplication? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you know how to multiply? You better say yes. Okay. Do you know your times tables? Let's start with an easy one. Do you know how to multiply by 5? Yes or no? Okay. Here's your assessment. Ready? 5 times 3. You're too slow. Ready? 5 times 3. 15. Ready? 5 times 4. 5 times 6. 5 times 66. Now, here's the point. When I asked you, do you know how to multiply by 5, you said yes. Were you thinking very generally or specifically about that question? You were thinking I was going to ask you the times tables. You had already boxed yourself in to the small numbers. It turns out, are most kids good in math or bad in math? Bad. Okay? The reason is this. We're teaching them to be great with single-digit whole numbers. Counting, skip counting, memorizing formulas only works with single-digit whole numbers. What grade levels do we use single-digit whole numbers? K1? Most kids by middle school are bad in math. We have to teach them to be good with all numbers. Now, let's think about multiplying by 5. I asked 5 times 6, everybody knows the answer. I asked 5 times 66, nervous laughter. Now, if I asked you this question, did you have to memorize your times tables when you were a kid? Yes. Okay, ready? Did anybody memorize their 15s table? No, we only have to know up to 12. Now, ready? Answer as quickly as you can. Ready? 15 times 66, go. Now, if I asked a kid in any school in America, third grader, 15 times 66, would they even think that's a fair question? They'd be like, that's not fair. Well, it turns out most people cannot do 15 times 66. But if I rephrase the question, watch how you think differently. Ready? You go to a restaurant. The bill is $66. You have to leave a 15% tip. Do you know the tip trick? Everybody goes, oh yeah, I know the tip trick. I just go 66 times 0.15 in my head. That was a joke. Okay? Nobody does that, right? Every single person goes, oh, I know the tip trick. First, I'm going to do what? If I want 15%, first I'm going to do 10%, then I'm going to do 5%. Right? Now, you know what kids hear all day long in math class? There are many ways to solve a problem. Teachers say that over and over again. Okay, so the kid goes, okay, I'm going to break 15% into 11 and 4. Is that okay? No, it's not. Now, it turns out, does it have to be 10 and 5? Yeah, if you want the kid to get the answer right. Okay, what's 10% of $66? $6.60. If 10% is $6.60, how do you get the other 5? You just cut that in half. What's half of that? $3.30. You add it up, and the answer is $9.90. Raise your hand if you knew the tip trick before today. I didn't teach you anything new. You should feel bad about yourself. Now, does anybody even know what TIP stands for? Yes. To ensure proper service. You know what that was? A tip. Now, here's the point. Everybody knows how to do 15%. They go 10 and 5. Yet when I said, what's 15 times 66? Did anybody use the trick? No. You know what you do with 15? You break it into 10 and 5. What's 10 times 66? 660. If that's 10, how do you get 5? Just take half. What's half of 660? 330. So what's the answer? 990. Now, the first question I asked was not 15 times 66. It was 5 times 66. How come you didn't know the answer? Okay, what should we have done with 5 times 66? Start with what? 10. What's 10 of those? 660. You cut it in half, what do you get? 330. Now, is the 5 trick, the 15 trick, and the 15% trick all the same trick? It's the same trick. But you know what we do? We think specifically. We go, oh, I know how to figure out a 15% tip, but I don't know how to multiply by 15 or 5. If somebody shows a kid a great trick, what should we be teaching the kid to do with that trick? Apply it. Generalize. Okay, now, so I teach this kid the 5s trick. Well, let's do our assessment. Ready? So if I said to you 5 times 88, what's 10 times 88? 880. What's half of 880? 440. Has everybody got the trick? So a group of 5 you'll find with ease. Half of 10 is just a breeze. Just cut 10 in half. That's your 5. Okay? Now, let's try one more. Ready? 5 times. Now, here's the problem. Some people are sitting there going, oh, I'm bad at mental math. You know what I would say to you? I'm bad at the violin. I don't play the violin. I never practice. When was the last time you practiced mental math? Ready? So what I'm asking you to do is I'm going to put a big number here. I'm going to ask you to multiply by 10. How do you multiply by 10? Put a 0 on the end. Then what are you going to do? Cut it in half. Ready? Raise your hand. You got 2 seconds. Ready? Multiply by 10, cut in half, raise your hand when you have the right answer. Ready? 5 times 42. Okay, 10 of those would be what? 420. Cut in half and you get 210. You want to know what the number 1 strategy we're teaching kids to multiply by 5 is? Skip count. 5 times 4. The kid goes 5, 10, 15, 20. Ready? Everybody skip count. Go. Is that a terrible strategy? It's terrible. It only works for small numbers. Has everybody got the 5 strategy? This is your assessment. Ready? You got 1 second. Ready? All I'm asking you to do is put a 0 on the end, cut the number in half. Let's see what you do. Ready? 5 times. If you get this in less than 1 second correctly, Mindy will give you a set of my books for free. I didn't say I would. Now, ready?